A host without its podcast is a tragedy. A podcast without their host is dead.
Welcome back to Between Pages and Friends, a book club podcast hosted by Con and Lauren, two besties who read a lot of books, and Jon and Kyle, their gamer-turned-reader husbands who agreed to read with them. I'm Kyle.
I'm Jon.
I'm Con.
And I'm Lauren. You're listening to Season 2, where we're reading through the Empyrean Series by Rebecca Yarros. In today's episode, we're discussing Fourth Wing, chapters 9 through 17. This is a book club-style podcast, meaning that there is no spoilers for future chapters or books. So it's a safe space to read along with us. We'd love for you to share this podcast with your book besties and or significant other as well, so you can enjoy this epic series together too.
Additionally, this is your mild content warning. Fourth Wing is a new adult book, capital N, capital A, meaning it was written for audiences 18 and up. While the four of us tend to keep our conversations on the less explicit side, we will be discussing themes from this book that include death, dragons, and good angles.
Ooh.
I put that
You
in there.
winked at him, Jon. Good job.
Oh. If you're a fan of this episode and can't wait for the next, you can join us on Patreon. You'll receive early ad-free access to new episodes along with a delightful community of other book nerds, live events, a monthly book club, merch discounts, bi-weekly D&D nights, and tons more.
Lastly, the best way to support any podcast is by writing a review on Audible or Apple Podcasts. It only takes a moment and makes such a lasting impact, helping our show reach more book besties. Here's a recent review on Apple Podcasts from our new bestie, Deborah Joy96, titled Love This Pod. I found this podcast from TikTok, love listening to all the theories and reactions to big book moments, can't wait for Fourth Wing episods. Thanks, Deb.
Thank you, Deb.
Oh, thank you, Deb.
You don't have to wait. This is the second one.
It's here.
Deb, catch up.
Congrats, Deb.
Come on, Deb.
The future is now.
And now on to our pronunciation guide for this chapter section.
Yes, welcome back to Con's Declassified Fantasy Pronunciation Guide, where we're referencing the audiobooks narrated by Rebecca Soler to highlight all the new names and places mentioned in this chapter section. This reading section has a lot of dragon names, and many of them are pronounced multiple different ways between the original audio, graphic audio, and the author's interviews, so please don't cancel me for butchering a sacred language. We are doing our best with what we have. Here we go. First up, just for clarification, there was a word mentioned here that's capital T-Y-R-S, pronounced tears. This is referencing the people of Tyrrendor. I was a little confused when I saw this one at first, so I wanted to include that. If you hear or see tears, that is the people of Tyrrendor. Also mentioned in this, thank you. Also mentioned in this section are Somerton and Drathus. For characters, we have a few students mentioned named Trina, Imogen, Quinn, and Heaton. The death roll names mentioned are Calvin Atwater, Newland Javon, Orly Donans, Doria Merrill, Cameron Dyer, Arvel Palipa, Michael Iverum. May their souls be commended to Malik. We have a new text excerpt mentioned from Major Roraly's Guide to Appeasing the Gods, 2nd edition. Also, I want to read this. Just side note. For our dragons, we have Mira's dragon. In our first episode, I mentioned was pronounced Tyne. The original audio does change the pronunciation to Tiny for the rest of the book and also for Iron Flame. So do you guys prefer Tiny? I feel like Tyne makes more sense.
I've always said tiny, but
yeah,
I was going to go with whatever you said. I don't know.
I'm going to stick with Tyne.
Yeah.
Okay. We might change our pronunciation in and out a little bit on this one just because it's always different, but continuing with our dragons, we have the Empyrean. This is the name of the dragons as a whole. They're called the Empyrean. In this section, we meet Ternanach, son of Moitkodim, and Fiaclinfuel, descended from the cunning Dub Medine line, also known as Tern. Thank the gods for that. Then we meet Andarna Yoram, aka Andarna for short, Fierge, Rhiannon's green daggertail, Iotram, Riddick's brown swordtail, Sleeg, Sawyer's red swordtail, Bade, Jack Barlow's orange dragon, Schmaud, Kaori's dragon, Glean, the dragon who chose poorly, according to Tern, and lost his rider. Feathertail dragons are the breed we know the least about. Green dragons are known for their keen intellect, and orange are the most unpredictable. For events and world building, this is the last one I have for today. We have the Treaty of Arif, which is the agreement between Navarre and Krovla for mutually shared airspace for both dragons and griffins over the Esben Mountains. And now, ladies and gents, it's time for the chapter recaps. Take it away, Juan.
welcome, and salutations. Zayden has stepped onto the mat, and he starts doing the b-boy back and forth like he's about to go down into a windmill. You know what I'm talking about? All the other riders come over and make a circle around the mat, and they start chanting, "Go Zayden, go Zayden, go Zayden, go Zayden." Just kidding. He actually just comes up onto the mat and completely humiliates Violet. Like, he's barely doing anything, and she's losing horribly. But he's kind of also secretly giving her tips while he's doing it. He loves her. Then Dane continues to try and talk her into going to the scribe quadrant. I did it. Dang it. No. No. Kill me now. Put me out of my misery. Oh, shoot. Then Dane continues to try and talk her into going to the scribe quadrant. Boo. Going so far as to speak to Markham about still taking her. Violet's squad practices the gauntlet. Orly, unfortunately, falls to her death in what was kind of the first unexpected death. It didn't hit hard because she wasn't like a developed character by any means, but wasn't expecting it. Violet runs into Zayden again, and again, he doesn't kill her, but gives her another piece of advice. Do I sense a pattern?
Our audio listeners are going to be so confused at what just happened.
Yeah, those are all of my question marks. I have like 100 question marks in the notes, and that was all my question marks. So I had to leave space.
Yeah.
But it's now time for the real gauntlet. Violet uses Zayden's advice of the right way isn't the only way to overcome the difficult chimney ascent and ninja warrior wall. Her whole squad makes it to the top. They present for the dragons. Pryor gets roasted. Shocker. 2 green step out of their formation and get all up in Violet's business, and they can smell the dragon scale corset that Mira made for her. And like in a cool moment, she explains to the dragons what it is, and they seem to understand it, and it appeases them enough to return to their spots. Great. And as Luca rattles on about Violet being the new weakest link after Pryor, a blast of heat has her in a pile on the dirt. That's what you get, you dirty old bee. And now, my fair readers, it is time for the threshing. They make their way out into the field to find their dragons. Violet is wandering around and decides to get a better view up in a tree. She spots the golden feather tail at the end of the line of dragons. When she returns to the ground, she hears Jack and Tynan and Orin approaching, talking about hunting down and killing the small golden dragon. As they continue on, she races to beat them to it, to warn it. She barely beats them ahead of time, and she's like trying to shoo it away when they show up. As they draw their swords and close in, Zayden appears with Sigale. He can't intervene at all, he can't do anything, as Violet defends the golden feathertail, making Jack tuck tail and run, and then a giant black dragon descends. Tarn called it. He torches Tynan, trying to run away, and Tarn chooses Violet and provides her first dragon riding experience. How thrilling. She's so small, she can barely and doesn't stay on him, but unlike some of the other dragons, he saves her. And Darna is also in the skies flying with them. They make it back to the field with all the other riders who also bonded, and they're taking role as like rider and dragon. Violet approaches the table to give her and Taryn's name when Andarna speaks up to provide hers as well. And Violet has 2 dragons. Whoa! I imagine here in this moment the Kermit the Frog gif where he's like, oh! That's how excited I was. Yeah, thanks. Mayhem ensues, obviously. The dragons go and have their little meeting and agree that Violet will bond with both Taryn and Andarna. More mayhem. General Sorengale is a cold bee. Awkward kiss from Dane. The riders also get their relics, which is basically the sweet brand from their dragon. The next morning, everyone is getting their breakfast. We start to notice some power dynamic shifts in the riders, mostly in a social way, you know, kind of between strong bonds, dragons moving up, and then the unbonded to the bottom. Imogen is voluntold to be Violet's new personal trainer from Zayden. They have their first flight practice, and Violet is determined to stay on Taryn on her own without his help. Up till now, he's been kind of controlling her muscles, basically, to keep her on. But in the flight practice, she falls off several times because she's trying to do it herself. Dane finds her later, says the kiss was a mistake because in the end, it's all about politics and ambition for him, so he's dead to us now. Possibly literally, but we'll see how things shake out. Oh, and Sigile and Taryn are mates, which means Zayden and Violet are basically eternally joined at the hip. The end.
Wow.
Yeah. And what a lovely ending that is.
Yep.
Thank you, John. Let's jump into chapter 9.
9?
Chapter 9? We are starting off this chapter section. I had to highlight this part where Zayden steps onto the mat and he says, "Going for blood today, are we, Violence?" My note just said, hee.
I had this one highlighted too.
I figured you would. I felt like I just had to include it. And then this is maybe just an extra language warning because I feel like my first couple of highlights here include some F-bombs, but we don't usually include those on the podcast. This line from Violet makes me laugh every time I read this book, where in her POV, she says, "Beautiful fucking asshole. My breath catches and my body warms. The traitorous bitch. You are not attracted to toxic men," I remind myself. And yet here I am, getting all attracted.
I didn't even see your note there, and I have the same note, like, just a second later. It is so funny to me.
Yes, it makes me laugh out loud every time.
Oh, yeah. It's so good.
My first note of the evening, also a language warning, but it was when Xaden was on the mat watching her sort of like circle around him, and he said, "You gonna prance or are you going to attack?" And Violet just thought, "Fuck him." And I was like, well, that option wasn't on the menu, Vi, but I mean, foreshadowing, sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they're fighting. They land in a precarious position. And this is one of the kind of the little hints that he gives her amidst all of this. He says, kidneys are a good fit from this angle too. Her response is, "I swallow, refusing to think of other things that are a good fit at this angle." And I just wrote, "Heyo." Jeez. Heyo.
Girl's got one thing on her mind.
One thing, and that's it. And then my next note was, when is Dane not being a, But he was talking about having to possibly watch like Violet die and not be able to like do anything about it. And he says, "I'll have to watch Violet." And I just wrote, "Boo frickin' who, Dane? How about you help her instead of trying to stop her?" Because that's what Xaden has secretly been doing. He's been like helping her in his own way because he obviously can't be heard or seen like helping her. Like that's not going to be a good look for him at this point.
Sort of adding on to that, Xaden even calls him out directly, saying like, "Hey, she could use a little less protection and more instruction."
Yes.
Preach it, boys.
Freaking Dane, man.
Speaking of Dane, more of him. He says, "I never said I don't think you can cut it, Violet." And Violet sort of calls him out for this too, but I just thought, what a douche. Like, every ounce of your energy has gone to convincing her and others that she can't be here just because you didn't explicitly say you don't think she can do it. The way you've been acting kind of implies you don't think she can do it. Also, just another moment of him cradling her face in his hands, and now I'm like more than sure he's peeking into those memories every time. And after he explicitly said that's how it works, if anyone ever told me that, their hands would never come near my face. Like, I don't know why.
Swatting them out of the way.
I'm like, stop it.
I guess in her defense, like everything was new and so much was happening that maybe like didn't register as deeply. I don't know. But
I don't know. It was the fact that the very first time he was like, all I have to do is touch someone's temples. And then like 2 seconds later, her face is in his hands. That's all I would be thinking about if I just learned someone had. But I don't know.
And then it makes you wonder, like, whenever he does touch her face, like what memory is he getting from that? Like, is he trying to see what she thought of Xaden on the mat right here? Or like how far back does it go?
Does he get to choose?
Is it her memory right there in that moment of what she's thinking? Like, there's so much, like, I don't...
Who knows?
Yeah, more Dane pile on. But that's when he says, "Please, if you won't do it for yourself, then do it for me." I just wrote, ugh, gross, and also no.
And also no.
Pretty simple decision there, I think.
Like, kind of, going along with that, both of what you just said, like, not knowing what memories he's seeing, and her sort of like silently saying no. I'm also wondering how recent of memories he can read, because she doesn't say anything here, but he responds to her vibe, because he says, "I can't lose you, I just can't." This is while he's holding her face. And her narration just says, "I squeeze my eyes shut. This is my way out, and yet I don't want to take it." And he responds, "Just promise me you'll think about it." As if he had heard her thinking, "I don't want to take it." Which maybe, I don't know, when his two brain cells occasionally collide, he could just tell how someone feels. But I think he's using his signet here.
Stop. I don't know that we've had a whole chapter of the boys going back and forth about a character so much. So good job, guys. Way to tag team.
I love this.
Into chapter 10, I was the last person to write my notes in the script this week, and I was actually really surprised that there were no sassy comments about Auralie's backstory and getting her like, "Yeah, my dad and my brother, we love this thing, and this is how you do it," and then she immediately dies. I was fully expecting the boys to just be like totally trashing on that.
We covered it with Dylan, and at this point I'm like, anyone who does it is up for grabs, really.
Up for grabs. That's so
By
sad.
Malik, I guess.
I guess, yeah.
And the next, it says, my scalp prickles and Xaden stops mid-step 10 feet away, the set of his shoulders rigid. This has happened, I think up to this point, it's happened like a few times with the whole scalp prickling thing. And I'm super suspicious of it. At this point, I was very suspicious. Like it's something between her and Xaden, or it's his signet somehow sensing her or something. And then I was thinking, can rider signets be joined together somehow? Or is this like a mate type of thing? Like, what's going on here? So my thoughts were just like spiraling.
Mates?
Don't get Lord excited. Don't say that.
Mate, you say?
I agree. Like, after a few prickles, I was suspicious. I was like, good to know I'm not alone there. Because even in the previous chapter section, I think it happened like once or twice. And I was like, that's kind of weird.
Yeah. And we got more on this later. I think
we did, yeah.
we got more on that later.
Yeah.
And of course, this might be our first one of Fourth Wing, but I just had to note, like mint and leather and something I can't quite identify, something that borders between citrus and floral. Candle watch immediately.
Candle watch.
Candle watch.
Yes.
Our
We had a
first
lot
candle
of
watch.
these in our Throne of Glass series. Anytime there was like a very specific scent described, we would always be like, oh, that'd make a nice candle. So we started calling it Candle Watch. And so this is our first one of Fourth Wing. And something else we joked about a lot with Throne of Glass was that everyone's significant other smelled like home. So when John highlighted this and it says mint and leather and something I can't quite identify, I was like, probably home. That's probably the thing you can't
Thank you.
identify.
Yes, absolutely.
I had highlighted it and I went, may I suggest like home?
It's the obvious choice.
Let me help you out.
Missing something? Just add a little
I love
home.
it.
This is the same conversation with Xaden and Violet. She had got a scratch, I guess, on her cheek. I think it was during the gauntlet. Anyways, they're talking and his shadows are all around and he's kind of like showing off his power. And she said, I swear I feel a caress along the side of my wounded cheek. So first of all, super cool power, and he's like very impressive to be able to like control it that way. And then also, oh, that's just kind of cute with his power. on her
I missed
cheek.
that. Thanks for putting that note in. I missed that.
Yeah, so cute.
Very nice.
Did you need it for like plot and lore, or did you need it for like the romance part?
I feel like their relationship.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
for sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
The romance part. Good job, John.
I'm growing as a reader.
So proud of you.
I love how excited John was getting about the book this week. It was so fun.
Bro,
He was like so
I-
excited to talk about it.
I don't remember if I texted this out to the group. I finished it, I think it was Tuesday night. I stayed up until like 1:15.
We record on Mondays.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've been in withdrawal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
all
I've
freaking
been
week.
telling Lauren, like, I've worked nonstop for like a week, getting up at 5 a.m, working all day. If I wasn't so dead tired, I probably would have sped through it. But like, I just physically, the spirit is willing, but the body is weak. I cannot stay up. But I'm enthralled so far.
I'm so
Oh my
happy to
gosh,
hear
I
that.
love this.
Kyle likes a book. What the heck? Okay.
Wow. What a rush.
Let's not draw too much attention or he won't like it anymore.
And his shirt even says it this week.
That's true.
I like books.
I like books.
Before we started recording, Kyle showed us his new shirt because
Yeah,
it says, I like books and maybe 3 people.
We get to be the
And
3
I'm honored.
people.
Yes.
I'm glad I'm one of them since I'm his
We made a
wife.
short
Yeah,
list.
that's a
I
relief.
should
Yeah.
make an electronic version where the number changes based on like how many people we have
Oh,
in
there
our
you go.
community.
Yeah.
It just like rolls up.
Nice.
I love that. All right, chapter 11 from this little excerpt from Major Rorley's Guide to Appeasing the Gods. He who does not burn for Malak will be burned by Malak. So I'm back on God's Watch. This was just an interesting little note here.
Getting burned.
Ooh, sick burn.
Malice can come down and roast you, boy.
Boom, roasted.
Is this from the like weird version of this book where Xaden was doing the break dancing during the chapter recap and
Yeah.
all the gods are just roasting everyone and the dragons? What
right.
book? What addendum or second
Yeah.
edition or what are you guys
Second
reading? Okay, so this is right before the gauntlet, and Imogen is kind of being all sassy and whatever right before they go out and says to Violet, hopefully you won't fall ... short. And I freaking love Violet for just looking right at her, lifting her chin and saying, see you later. Like, yeah, she's going to come off and do the thing and be freaking amazing because she's Violet and she's the best. And I love her. And that was an amazing comeback. And then last episode, we were talking about this. And so I thought I would just put it out here. And then it comes up again later in this chapter section. We were talking about the badges and we were kind of like, why are we putting them out there? And this seems like a big joke. And then Violet says, most wear them like badges of honor, but I recognize them for what they really are, intelligence, that I might one day need to defeat them. So first of all, freaking smart. Love her. Glad she's as smart as us. And then also, we learn later in this chapter that Xaden doesn't wear any of them, probably thinking, hopefully maybe, for the same reason, so that people can't use it against him.
I have another note about this later, too.
Oh, this is like after we sort of learned that, I guess when cadets die, relatives have a choice of being like, just burn them, or they can come pick up their body and bury or burn themselves. And at one point, Dane says, I don't want to have to bury you, Vi. I was like, well, good news. Vizgaiath offers a convenient mass incineration option.
Oh my gosh.
Send him to the furnace.
Yeah, it's like easy access furnace. She literally just throws a backpack in there. Done and done.
Easy access.
Oh my word.
Okay. In this same conversation between Dane and Violet, I was like really cheering Violet on here, where she's in her POV. She's like, but now I have a choice and I choose to stay. And Dane says, what changed between Parapet and now? And Violet says, me. And I was like, yes, you go, girl. I was living for this.
Yes. This is how I was feeling with her Imogen comment earlier. She's
Yes.
on it.
Yep.
Ugh,
She
I
came
just
ready
love
to
her.
fight today.
Yep.
I also love when she is doing the gauntlet, and Riddick and Rhee are just being so supportive and like hyping her up and just being like the best little hype team on the ground. I just loved like all of this and their little friendship dynamic so much.
I know. And like when she makes it up and Riddick literally like jumps on her and is like, that's our girl. I was like, oh, Riddick, you're so cute. And
Yeah, it is.
they like squish her in a little sandwich.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
For my next note, this is after Vi does the thing. She uses her blade to sort of get a stair step up on the gauntlet, and Amber is arguing that she doesn't deserve the win.
Freaking Amber.
And she's like, well, you know, technically everything I have is who I am. It's part of my person when we bring it in. And Xaden's like, well, she has you, Amber. And Amber says, on a technicality. And Xaden says, she still has you. And as a board game player, all my support for technical wins. I think it's so funny when people argue against it, like, oh, you only won because you know how the game works and you didn't break the rules. I'm like, well, yeah, that's how the game works. Like, what are you talking about, you idiot? Shut it, Amber.
Yeah. What kind of name is Amber anyway? Pretty normal name to me, which we know can only mean one thing.
Yeah.
Certain death.
Yeah. Certain technical death.
Technical death. Very technical death.
Technically.
Girl, bye.
Well, and then with Amber is the one that Dane was friends with last year, and there's just some like innuendo there. Yeah, from the first time they had talked, and then from Violet's POV, she says, "No wonder she and Dane are so close. They're both in love with the Codex." I was like, "Oh, I'm glad she's figuring this out about Dane."
Yeah.
Like a thruple.
Yeah.
Oh, and chapter 12. I just thought this was super interesting. So, like, any of the facts that we're getting about the dragons I'm just like, it's just absorbing into me. This is when they have finished the gauntlet. They're going into the line to, like, present themselves. The presentation, is that what it's called?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yes. They're presenting themselves for the dragons. Hey-o. They're going in there, they're peacocking, you know what I mean? Anyway, but it says averaging 25 feet tall, they're in a formation of their own, lined up several feet back from the path, close enough to pass judgment on us as we walk by. This kind of goes back to my earlier comment about them possibly having kind of like a moral code or something like that. They obviously have, whether you would call this like a tradition, I guess. I just find it very interesting that they're like in a formation of their own, like ready to do what needs to be done. It's just, this is what they do. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. I had to comment here when they say that there is a Feathertail in the ranks. Tynan kind of stutters and says, Feathertail? Who the hell would ever want to bond a Feathertail? I just put in here, it would be hilarious if the Feathertail torches him. And I said, either way, I think it's going to happen to him. He seems way too timid, but we obviously know what happens to him later. But
He gets roasted.
Yeah,
he gets roasted.
On this in my first read, I thought this was like foreshadowing that he would end up getting the Feathertail or something like that, and it would just be like, haha, this guy, you know, or
Gotcha.
something like that too.
Yeah, that would be good too.
I was cracking up at this line from Riddick. The senior wing leader says, talk, and like folds her arms across her chest. And Riddick goes, nice day for a presentation. And she goes, not to me. Talk to your nearby squad mates while you're on the path.
Riddick.
To be fair, just saying talk. Like, what were they supposed to take from that?
That is fair.
No.
And Riddick was given permission. You knew he was
Yeah.
going to say something.
Yes.
Me first.
That made me laugh so hard.
And then as they are filing in, seeing the dragons, and it says, sitting so perfectly still that they might be gargoyles, are the 101 dragons who have decided to bond this year. And I was just thinking, dang, that is crazy. Like, just imagine, I think they may have described the setting, but what I picture it is like this small stone doorway that they walk through, but it's like a huge open space in between, and there are like almost like columns down each side that they're walking in between, and that the dragons are just like kind of perched on top of these columns going down. But imagine like about 50 on each side, but still, that's like, they're dragons. Like, I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. That would be super scary. And then they're talking to each other as they're walking, and they're talking about Mira. And Tynan says, I'd be loyal to your sister too. She's one hell of a writer. And that ass, I saw her right before Parapet, and damn, Violet, she's hot. I just had to put an LOL there because I thought that was funny. Yeah, so Violet gets approached by the dragons, and they're sniffing her out, and then they go back up, and they kind of continue on, and Riddick says, I think I just shat myself. And this made me crack up. That she even wrote this in here is just incredible that she found a way. He's turning out to be pretty comical, so I really hope he's in it for the long haul.
He's growing on me. Didn't like him when he was interrupting class, but he's growing on me.
He's had some good quips up to this point.
I really hope
Yes.
too, like, I guess I'm just now thinking about, like, this sort of attitude that he's having is what attracted the dragon to him. I really hope we learn that, like, whatever his dragon is like the same mindset, just like sort of jokey, like, whatever.
His dragon is the class clown of the Empyrean.
Yeah.
They're having
That's
this
hilarious.
meeting about the two dragons, and then Riddick's dragon's just over there.
To get some of their mind conversations would be,
Yes.
would be pretty good.
Yeah.
We need a Riddick POV.
I just wrote because I thought it was ridiculous. On the other hand, like, Riddick's making this sort of light commentary that I could see as a dragon being like, oh, that's at least some form of courageous, using comedy as a coping mechanism for a
Yeah.
very serious circumstance. There you go. Got it out. But, like, Tynan and Luca are just stupid. They're literally, like, crap talking the dragons.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
like, and Violet, I think, even says it, like, you know they can hear us, right? Like, and I was like, yeah, what do you think is going to happen, you freaking idiots? Like, they're saying, like, yeah, that dragon sucks.
Yeah, and then to kind of end out that scene, after Pryor gets torched and they keep on walking, and then Luca is just kind of like talking crap, and she says he could never make a decision, and no one wants someone like that as their writer. And then she gets torched, and Riddick goes, guess the dragons think she's insufferable too. And I said, yes, get her out of here, dude. She's already insufferable, and like within like 5 minutes.
Reading and candles go hand in handles, and Mood Reader candles makes them even better. With pure soy candles inspired by your favorite reads, including a Fourth Wing themed collection, they're perfect for creating a cozy reading atmosphere. Visit moodreadercandles.com, use code FRIENDS10 for 10% off your order. The discount applies to all candles except bundles and already discounted items, and give your bookshelf a little extra glow up. Please keep fire away from paper.
Seriously. I mean it.
Disclaimer.
All the tiny print at the bottom of the ad. Okay, chapter 13. October 1st is always threshing. I just love that now the boys know what threshing is, because the whole internet freaks out on October 1st and it's all threshing related.
Nice.
And everyone talks about it and like, what dragon do you get and all the things. We even did it in Discord this year, but you guys aren't on the Fourth Wing channels, so you missed it.
Wow.
So I'm
Yep.
excited for your first threshing come October 1st. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Can't wait to be threshed.
Well, first you have to go across the parapet and up the gauntlet. So, like, it might, you know, you might not make it. But
Yeah.
Well, I could probably do it.
Best of luck. We'll commend your soul to Malik if you don't.
I just need some size 7 combat boots and I'm good.
Connor and I went across the parapet last year at the Iron Flame release party. They had
Yeah.
two
Nice.
cinder
We did.
blocks. and a 2x4
I don't
across.
know.
Oh, yeah,
And
I remember seeing that picture.
They also had like a oscillating fan to be like the
Yes.
winds blowing
I forgot
on.
about that.
This is right before they go into Threshing. We're talking about what dragon should you get, and she was like, "Well, Dane thinks I should go for a brown something because
Thank
it's
you.
tame."
Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Yes.
And then Rhiannon's like, "He doesn't get a vote."
Rhiannon's like, Dane lost his vote when he tried talking into leaving. And I'm like, preach it, girl. Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
it's so nice to have a friend of our main character that's like so on her side. It's
Yeah.
like, girl,
Yes.
you're making a lot of sense right now. Give it to me straight. I like it. I appreciate it.
I think she can only give it to
Me
you
too.
by, from what I've heard.
Good point.
That means she can still give it to you. So.
Yeah.
That's
She
right.
could give it to you either way, though. I had written as my first note in regards to their plan to kill the Feathertail. Jack says, "It's for the best. It's a certified freak." And I wrote, 7 days a week? Small gold dragon? Make that writer game weak? Because I couldn't get that song out of my head for the rest of the
beautiful.
chapter.
Nice.
On approaching this golden dragon, Vi's encouraging it to leave it. At one point says, "Yes, you, Goldie." And I just wanted to point out this is the second book of 2 book series that we're
Yep.
covering to almost name an animal the same name as our family's pup, which is an odd coincidence. That is all. And then more prickling occurs here near the end of the chapter. So either Xaden is causing this or Basgiath is about to have a lice outbreak.
Prickle watch.
Yep. Everybody's heads are prickling.
Moving into chapter 14, I have to explain this note first because I think we talked about this at the very end of our Throne of
very
Glass
end.
coverage. Yes, but last summer, before we were in podcast land, Lauren, I guess I shouldn't say last summer, it would have been the summer before, right?
A couple of summers ago.
A couple summers ago, Lauren and I were buddy reading a bunch of books. This really just means we were reading the book at the same time and we would like send each other notes or use the buddy read function in StoryGraph. And we started joking about... Some people don't know what that means.
They are friends. Shush.
I get asked that all the time. Lauren and I started joking about how frequently in romance books the male main character's jaw clenches or his jaw ticks or a muscle in his jaw works. And so we made up this, not really a drinking game, but we started calling it a drinking game where every time somebody's jaw ticked, we would say cheers in our notes. Or like
Little
drink
clink
up.
emoji.
Yeah. So in chapter 14, my first highlight was, I swear I can see his jaw clench. And I wrote cheers in all caps.
Cheers.
Yeah. So I'm taking a drink. Okay. My first actual note from chapter 14 was that I love Violet's spirit and how she turns her weaknesses into strengths. And I had 2 different quotes here where she says, "That's the thing about having weak joints. You know exactly where to strike." And then she says, "I'm used to functioning in pain, asshole. Are you?"
Yes. And then, like, talking to Jack is who she's talking to. And he just yells, "Kill her," while clutching his shoulder. And he backs away a few steps, then turns and runs in the opposite direction, disappearing into a tree line in no time. He leaves his other friends who he brought there to do the things, and he just runs away like a coward. As if we needed another reason to hate Jack Barlow. He just sucks. And then Xaden shows up and they're all sitting there watching. He can't help her, but he does say, "Behind you." And then I think it's Tynan and says, "You can't interfere." And he's like, "No, but I can narrate." And I was like, what a good way to get around the rules just a little bit and still help out my hero. And then later he actually even takes a small step forward. Like he's going to come help, but then doesn't because she doesn't need it. But he's a real man. That's all I got. Yep.
It's actually a fictional man.
No, he's not. And
I'm offended.
You know, Kyle loves those technicalities.
that is true. That's what's happening here, though, with Xaden being like, "I can narrate." That's a technicality. So
Yep.
you should like
He
that
went,
about him.
actually, I can narrate.
Yes, he did. Just like that. That's funny. And then I was actually, again, last person to write the notes. And I was so surprised no one in here was like talking about how she got the big rare black dragon and how you guys were right and you called it. So good job.
He did call it in his recap. He said, call
Yeah.
it.
Well,
True.
that's true. But good job. She did get that
thanks.
one. And then his first line is, "Step aside, silver one." Ooh, what a good nickname.
It is.
And she's got the gold dragon and then she's got the silver hair. Best friends.
Yeah.
I know this is really not how he meant this, but when Taryn, talking to her, just says, "You're bleeding, stop it." It was just funny to me because it's my response. And I think most dads to anything anyone who's hurt says, like, "Oh, well, this really hurts. I'm like, oh my gosh, my arm. I was like, well, why'd you do that? Stop it. Like, if you would just quit hurting, obviously that's the answer.
So you're saying Taryn gives dad energy?
Yeah.
I will say I named my car Taryn like a long time ago. And so this week I finally was like, John, this is why my car is named Taryn. Because it's like 16 years old, which is probably over 100 in dragon years, right? I don't know. It's super
years.
old. It's a black car, super duper old, and it sounds like an angry, grumpy dragon when you try to start it. So
Right.
where
that name came from. But I was like, I finally get to explain this to you. It's Taryn the Toyota.
I love that, like...
The Toyota.
Taryn the Toyota. See, like,
I love it.
It's funny to me that you think that way, like, starting a car sounds awful, and you're like, wow, this sounds like a dragon. I'm going to name you Taryn, instead of being like, I should get that noise checked out.
Yep.
We technically
That's accurate.
have had it checked out, and they're like,
Yeah.
there's nothing we can do.
No, you got a dragon in your muffler.
It just does that. There's nothing we can do, basically, until it breaks.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Okay.
I love it
That's
when
great.
they say that.
Well,
That's what my
wait
doctor
until
says.
that happens.
The whole car is worth like probably $300 now, so it's
Yeah.
not really worth fixing.
Yeah. I've been there.
Still kicking.
Chapter 15. This is when they're, I think, flying or getting ready to fly, and she was all worried about not being able to keep her seat. She just says, I'm just ... not as strong as others. And then Taryn responds, I know exactly who and what you are, Violet Sorengale. It's like, first of all, cryptic and cool and all the things, because he literally just met her 2 seconds ago. I don't know. I'm excited for them. I just love him.
I keep hearing this in. Do you remember the guy's name that did
Yes,
some of the
I
promos?
actually looked it up. Yep, and
What's
I looked
his
it
name?
up. We talked about it last week. I was like, Kyle, I can show you who this guy is now because you heard the line or whatever.
Yeah.
I think
Is
it's
it Michael
something, and I'm looking it up. It is, I don't know if I'm going to say it wrong, EOK. He's a digital creator, and he got to come out with some like voice acting stuff for Rebecca Yarros, quoting some of Taryn's most famous lines. And he does this like
Gotcha.
cool growl thing at the beginning that sounds like you're wrecking your voice, but he does it really cool. Yeah, you should go check it out if you haven't seen those yet. Shout out to him. Go like and subscribe.
Yeah, I was hearing that in my head when I read this line this time around. Speaking of Violet and Taryn, though, I am obsessed with all of their dialogue. I couldn't help it. I was just highlighting literally everything they said in this chapter. But I love the part where she's on his back and they're flying. And she's like, of course I practiced. And he's like, there's no need to shout. I can hear you just fine. In her head, she's like, he can read my thoughts. And he goes, see? Smartest of your year. Just like so sassy. I love him so much. And then she goes to dismount and basically just slides off of him. And he goes,
On her
that's
butt.
one way to do it. Yeah.
It's like scoots down.
I'm definitely digging his personality as well. Like, there was a line, you defended the smallest with ferocity, and the strength of courage is more important than physical strength, since apparently you need to know before we land. Which again sort of just gives me, I don't know, tired dad vibes. It's like, even when
Yeah.
she was like, I didn't think I'd make it this far, and he's just like, neither did I.
And then Violet finally makes it down and goes up to the roll table to give her name and Taryn's. And after she gives her and Taryn's name, she hears the little voice in her head, and it says, how do you say her name again, the full name?
And Darna Urim.
Thanks.
That was cute.
Thank you.
She tells the record keeper her name. The person's eyes fly wide. Both dragons? She squawks. I nod, and all hell breaks loose. And I was just thinking, 2 dragons? Like, my God, what is or are her signets going to be? Like, this is going to be absolutely crazy. I just can't wait to find that out. It's going to be huge.
I highlighted here that the lady squawks. I was like, both dragons?
Perfect. Literally that. Yeah, for sure.
So good.
Oh my gosh. Chapter 16. I think part of this is just because of the way that Rebecca Soler narrates Andarna and does this cute little like higher pitched voice. But I was cracking up at this line where in Violet's POV, she's like, there's zero doubt I'm the subject of both disgruntled snarls. Like she's watching the dragons converse or whatever they're doing. And Andarna's like, yep, we're talking about you. And she passes by and joins in the line. Like she's so cute.
I had to give a shout out here for Sawyer because he bonded. So I was like, yes, dude. He went through it. Second year, first year repeat. So glad he got it. And then this line when Dane like catches up to Violet or whatever, and it says, "I'm spun around by the shoulders and yanked against the chest." Dane. And I just went, ugh. God, seriously. In this great moment with she's just got 2 dragons and there he is. He's always there. Maybe she'll like me if I'm always there.
Oh my gosh.
This guy, man.
So what you're telling me is you don't like him. I wasn't sure.
I guess I feel strongly about it. That was a kind of a more visceral reaction, honestly.
Even in the writing, you can kind of tell she didn't like that. I feel like being yanked against the chest instead of being like pulled into an embrace is a different way to say that would be like a lovely thing. But to be yanked into a chest.
And his name is italicized. And I literally pictured her saying that as like a sigh, like, Dane. Like an eye roll.
Dang.
A little bit later in their conversation, it says his grip tightens. Thank gods for the dragon scale armor, or I might have bruises tomorrow. Like he's holding her that tightly and being that rough and rude and all the things. Like
Yikes.
It's not
No.
it. Yeah,
No,
that's a
it's-
perfect explanation. Yeah, definitely not.
The ick.
it is the major ick before this moment, but definitely
Capital
this moment.
ick.
But we did get out of this conversation 2 more opportunities to drink when his jaw ticks
here,
once
here.
and then Dane's jaw flexes. Shot. Drink.
Lovely.
Strong water.
It really packs a punch.
There's ice cubes in it.
Stay hydrated.
That'll wake you up in the morning.
We also learned from Dane that Tarn and Segale are a mated pair, the strongest bonded pair in centuries, and that mated pairs, I guess, can't be apart for very long, and so basically they're stuck together for forever, and she thinks I'm tethered to Xaden Ryerson, and I highlighted that and said, forced proximity!
Yes.
Forced proximity! Hey, I'm here for it. Give me more.
I feel like I'm going to have to put an explicit mark on this episode, or maybe
On all the episodes for this.
all the Fourth Wing ones.
Yeah, maybe.
We get one of my favorite random phrases from this book series in this section when Xaden roars, "Well, the fuck aware." I forgot how much I love this phrase, and I also forgot until this moment that I made a friendship bracelet for the Iron Flame release party that says this on it.
Forgot about that. Yes.
And that was my favorite one. I think somebody wanted it. I think I traded that one away. I don't have it anymore, but
I just had notes from Dane again. Him saying, "It would have killed me to watch something happen to you, Vi, but the rules." And I was like, bro, get out of here. Get out of here. All the way out.
I thought you loved the rules, Kyle.
I don't like that, though. The rules are meant to be bent and broken. I mean,
Oh.
You gotta-
Oh, all right.
you gotta prioritize.
Xaden did all the things and still tried to help her, but he was still
Yeah.
technically within the rules.
Technically, yes.
Technically.
Yes, that's the way to do it. The rules are there, so you know, if you know the rules well enough, you know what the
Yes.
rules don't cover. And that's was my motto throughout my academic career.
What a middle child. What a middle child you are.
When I left high school, I was gifted a rule book that had highlighted all of the ones that were there because of me.
Oh my gosh.
Like at your school?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Kyle.
It was a good gift.
That's amazing. Wow.
Anyway, this is after the Empyrean meeting. Melgren's coming up to sort of announce the decision. And he says, while we writers may not feel as though this is equitable, that's how he says it, dragons make their own laws. And I also just wrote, I love how in this world it's more unfair that someone has 2 dragons than that dozens of deaths have occurred. Like, that's the big concern. And then again, with Dane, Vi is narrating, I blink and my vision is mine again, and Dane's hands lace up my corset quickly that are on my face, tipping it up toward his. And I was like, again, with the face touchy. Lay off.
Back off, buddy.
Yeah, pal.
Back off.
Go on, scram.
She doesn't
She doesn't want to talk to you. This is a callback to our first bonus Q&A with the 4 of us from a story that Kyle and Lauren told about when they were dating or like first starting to date. But in this section, Xaden says, there's now an us if the Empyrean lets Taryn's choice stand. And I wrote, we're a we?
When I saw your note, I was like, aw, she remembers that story. What a good friend.
You're welcome. And if you want to hear that story, you can go back and listen to our bonus Q&A from July, probably. That was a while ago.
Lauren threw that at me mid-argument recently. I don't know what we were arguing about. But I was saying, like, that's just not something we could do or whatever. And she was like, well, first of all, where are we? Second of all, I think we can do it. I was like, so thrown off by it. It was pretty funny.
Well, we are. So
I had to comment on Violet's feelings of the kiss. He just kind of plants it on her very surprisingly. From her point of view, it says, the thrill is gone in less than a heartbeat. There's no heat, no Guatemalanness, no energy, no sharp slice of lust. And I just put, thank goodness. Thank goodness that there was nothing. It's a quoting of one of my favorite movies, The Birdcage, if you didn't get that.
I did not. But I'm sure somebody watching will.
I hope I made Emily proud.
I'm sure you did.
But the very last line of the chapter is, it was everything I've ever wanted, except I don't want it anymore. I was like, good.
Yes.
So glad. We're all on the same page, Violet.
Yes, absolutely.
I can't want it.
More.
Oh my gosh.
She flies off on Tarn into the
That's great.
Do you think that's kind of like awkward for her dragons? Because they cut her off in the meeting to where they didn't have that mental connection. And the meeting's obviously over. So do you think they come right back into it? She'd be like, oh, she's kissing a dude she doesn't like. Like, we could have waited 2 seconds to get back in the mine. We
Poor
backseated a horrible kiss.
At some point, Taryn said he has seen all her memories because
Oh,
it was
that's
like
true.
he didn't want her to like dagger his leg to
yeah.
climb up
Oh
or
my
whatever.
gosh.
So even if they weren't there to actively see it, they would still probably
to
have
see
seen
it when
it.
it's fresh.
It's fresh. It's live. It's different when it's live.
Yeah.
All right. It takes us to the last chapter here of this section, chapter 17.
Gosh.
I had to make a note here. This is when Violet is catching Sawyer coming out of Ree's room, and she says, good morning. I grin. I just thought, man, Ree's really getting around here, but also good for Sawyer. That guy had a rough first year, so glad to see he's making the most of his hard-earned status. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You go, buddy.
Something was getting hard in there.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. You could tell she was nervous to say that,
You
too.
could. Yeah, she was leading up to it.
She's
My face
literally
is
so
so
red.
red.
She's as red as her headphones.
And it's because I had thought about it hours ago when I wrote these notes. And so
It's been bothering her this whole
I've been
time.
waiting this whole time.
It's such a stress relief.
Her heartbeat's like racing.
God.
Something was a stress relief.
I've been holding this in all day.
That's what Sawyer said.
That's what I was saying.
Next note here, I believe this is right after Rhiannon comes out of her room or whatever, and they're kind of talking about the whole Dane kiss thing. Rhiannon is basically like, so like, what's going on with that? Like, it's not like nobody saw you. Everybody was out on the field. Violet ends up kind of saying, it's not like that with us. I'd always hoped it would be, but when he kissed me, there was nothing there, like nothing. And I had to write here and comment, coming off of Throne of Glass, it's really refreshing to get open and honest answers when it comes to this stuff. You know what I mean?
I got you.
It's nice. You're
I
just
agree.
there's clarity,
love-
and it's
Direct
refreshing.
communication.
Yes, exactly. My next one here is when Riddick is asking everyone about their relics, and Rhee says, somewhere you'll never see, and then he responds, you wound me, while slapping his hand over his heart. And I had to put here, I was like, okay, Riddick is one of my new faves. Like, hopefully he lives very long. I really hope he does. This is great. One of the best moments.
I love him too. In Violet's POV here, she's looking around at all of the patches that everyone has on their uniforms. And she thinks, I should have studied up on what all the patches mean, but according to what I've heard, they change every year. And I went, I want this job. How do I apply to be the best guy at graphic designer?
There you go.
Design all the patches every year.
Sign everyone's patches.
Nice. Speaking of patches, I loved this. It was how she explains that they're the squad to have the most surviving members since Parapet, so they have a patch calling themselves they're this year's Iron Squad, and I just thought that was
Nice.
pretty dope.
Super cool.
Yeah.
And then as they're getting their breakfast and everything, and the leaders are up on the leader table, wherever they are, and she sees Zayden peeling an apple with his dagger. It says they lock eyes. My whole head tingles. That's not the only thing, but also I'm really curious about this whole tingling thing, and I'm now on Tingle Watch.
Tingle Watch, that's what it was.
Tingle Watch.
That's That's what he came out and told me, and I had no context, like, for what he was reading or what part he was at. He just came out of the room and he was like, I'm on Tingle Watch.
Tingling.
I forgot about this scene, and I didn't actually write it down, but my takeaway from reading that was like, what is this guy, 5? He's peeling an apple. Just eat the peel.
Just eat the peel.
He doesn't like the peel.
It's been so long since I've heard someone peeling an apple for a non-child that it threw me off.
He feeds the peel to Sigale.
Yeah. Real
Because that
peel
will
lover.
fill her up.
Yep.
It's more of a delicacy thing, really.
Better catch it before it flies off into the wind.
It just garnishes her kill for the day.
Exactly.
Apple peel.
Maybe he dries them. Maybe it's a snack for him later.
It's just like a hobby he has. You go back to his room, he's got hung up fruit drying in the sun.
He's got hundreds of clotheslines across. They're all peels, apple
I'm just
peels.
making some fruit jerky. Guy can't have hobbies.
Oh God! Now we need what hobby would each character have in Fourth Wing? But it's got to be something like really, really weird like that.
One of those things that you'd find with any college dorm mate that you'd walk in and be like, "Oh, I didn't know you did that."
It's the thing they hide from everyone else because it would make them seem weak.
Yes.
Yeah. And Satan's fruit jerky.
He's running a black market underground.
That's what all the marked students are meeting about.
It's a business they got to distribute.
Yeah,
Are you guys going to the farmer's market?
You got the goods.
Oh my gosh.
so good.
The most random.
Nice.
Probably why Zayden has that citrusy scent about him.
yeah.
It's all this
That's right.
work
Yeah.
that he's doing.
Yeah.
All his clothes smell like
Work.
it.
Yeah.
right.
His leathers are actually fruit leather.
She's just going to eat it right off of him.
Easy snacking on the go
Yeah.
while he's.
I could spare a bit of armor. I'm kind of feeling snackish.
John! Just off the shoulder.
Well, speaking of their regular uniforms and flight leathers, this is the callback to our conversation last week and earlier in this episode in Violet's POV. It says, unlike our regular uniforms, flight leathers bear no insignia besides our rank at our shoulder and any leadership designation. No names, no patches, nothing that could give us away if we're separated from our dragons behind enemy lines. Because we were talking about that last week of why would you want to wear that? But that makes sense that it would be more for schooling purposes, I guess. I guess that would be more for professors to reference than anyone else, or I guess for other students if they're learning how to deal with other people's signets and stuff. But yeah, at least that was comforting to know that they don't wear those into battle.
Yeah.
My next note here was about her getting back up for the riding practice. She's got back up on Terran. She's like, my thighs ache from yesterday, and I wince as I get into position, gripping the pommel of scales. And I was thinking here, I'm really surprised that no one yet has fashioned some kind of leather something to help hold on. It could be part of a saddle and a bull rope. If you know what a bull rope is, it's the rope that they use for bull riders. But I feel like something intuitive, thanks. I feel like something intuitive like that would help her, but still not be a hindrance in battle. They could still do stuff.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's not the only small-statured person to be a rider.
Yeah.
Yet they've all figured it. Well, I guess maybe not all of them have figured it out, but I'm sure some of them have figured it out.
I mean, that's the first thing Hiccup did was make a saddle, so it does seem pretty obvious.
There you go.
Talking about How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah.
Part of that was because Toothless was missing part of his wing and
Whoa.
needed that.
He made the wing
So.
for his tail, but the saddle was separate. And it was a special saddle because Hiccup was missing a foot, so he had to latch his little prosthetic in there. So don't come at me.
There you go.
Spoilers for How to Train Your Dragon. Sorry if you've not seen
Yeah,
that.
spoilers for How to Train Your Dragon. Someone trains a dragon.
Oh my God.
While they're on the flight field, Professor Kaori is up there talking, and we've seen this twice now, but this moment specifically, he's using common lesser magic to project his voice so that all can hear from that long of a distance. And Violet just thinks, God help us when Riddick figures out how to do that. I can't wait
I
for
love
that moment.
too. Yes. I have a small God's Watch here. When Violet and Taryn are talking, she says, remind me to spend some time at temple so I can make multiple appeals to Dune. And Taryn scoffs and says the goddess of strength and war. And Violet says, what? Dragons don't think we need the gods on our side? This led into John's next highlight, which was dragons pay no heed to your puny gods.
Yes. And for that, I just wrote, this line slaps, and it also reminds me of the Hulk
Yeah.
in that moment in the Marvel movie.
But yeah, that was a little interesting kind of God's Watch that the dragons don't seem to really care about the gods or take that seriously at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or that they're higher than the gods, in his opinion,
puny
if the gods
gods.
do
Yeah.
exist. Yeah.
Maybe they have their own gods.
Yep.
And then they're flying, and Violet is trying to convince Taryn. Like, he uses his magic, I guess, to hold down her legs. She says, how the hell am I supposed to become a rider if I can't stay in my damn dragon myself? And he just says, have it your way, and the bands fall away. And then she goes, thank you. Oh, shit. I just thought it was so funny.
Yeah, that
It's
was great.
written with the U-O, all one word. And you can just, like, imagine it happening and her, like, being like, thank you very much. And it just falls right off. It's so good. I just love the way she writes all the things differently. So it just puts that clear picture in my head. It's so good.
Yes, that was another one that, like, when I listened to the audio on my first read, I thought that was so funny, but then, like, seeing it in print for some reason was so much funnier because she literally types it like that.
It's one of the things that makes me wonder about Jacinia, the person who's like supposedly translating all this stuff, and like who in this world who actually writes it that way and actually translates it that way. I don't know. There's just something I was like, oh, that's interesting that would be, because I'm trying to remember at all times that like this is an actual written thing in this world or whatever. So
Good point.
So since you mentioned like about using magic to kind of control that, I had kind of mentioned it to Connor. I was curious about this, if like, because they have that like telepathic bridge or whatever, I was wondering if he can basically control her muscles or like cause them to tense up that way. I don't know.
I thought it
just a
was
thought I had.
it said like a band of his magic. I just imagined it like invisible, like leg, like an invisible seat belt.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, cool. My next note is when Violet is heading to meet Imogen at the gym and it says Dane catching up to her. Instead, there's a sea of awkwardness that I don't know how to navigate. And I just wrote, you and me both, girl. Like, we're in this together.
And then his jaw works. Cheers.
Cheers.
cheers. My next thing was just Taryn in Vi's head in reference to Dane. He just says, tell him to mind his own business. And all I wrote was, if only, Taryn. If only.
That's the dream.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then a sigh rips from Dane's lips, and he palms my face gently, his gaze dropping to my lips for a heartbeat before he steps back, saying, look about last night. This is like right after he runs up to her after he thinks they had the kiss, and she had the kiss. And he's like all happy running up to her, touches her face, and is all of a sudden like, oh, look about last night. So he goes on to say they shouldn't progress their relationship because he's the college codex's whipping boy. But I personally think that he felt her face here and saw her recent memory of either the kiss itself or maybe her telling her bestie that the kiss sucked and it meant nothing to her. And then instead of continuing like the little banter session, because they were talking for a little bit before he did this, he decided that to make it seem like his idea to not be interested in upping their relationship. Like he felt or saw that. And I was like, ooh, let's tone it down sort of thing.
Well, especially because his gaze drops to her lips for a heartbeat. Like he was going to kiss her again, or he was thinking about it, and then the memory came to his brain, or however the heck that works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Well, and then just like his excuse is, you know, I've worked so hard to be a squad leader. I'm determined to be a wing leader next year. And as much as you mean to me, ... And then she thinks it shouldn't matter that he's only pursuing his rank. It honestly doesn't, but it makes me lose a little respect for him. So now it's not just getting the ick romantically, like there's not a spark, but now she's like starting to understand maybe
She
him
would
as a
always be
person.
second.
Maybe it's a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah.
So poor guy. Poor girl.
Yeah.
The whole thing is awkward. It's
Super.
you know when you go to college and you just that first person and it's just not it's not it, you know. I have
sure
one of
do.
those.
And finally, she makes it to the gym with Imogen. Imogen goes, "We need to strengthen those legs." Proceeds to do a set of 30. And I just wrote, 30? How many sets are we doing here, Mo? I need deets on this workout regimen. Like, goodness gracious.
I did not expect that nickname.
That took me a second to put together.
We need details. What are we doing here?
There's got to be somewhere out there that's made like a Imogen workout regimen. And if not, John, you should totally come up with one after we finish the book and try to like piece together some things. That would be so cool.
I mean, do we get a little more of what they do? Or is this it?
No, you guys
not.
work
This
off
might
of
be
sets
it.
of 30. And that's it.
Sets of 30. Okay. It's going to be interesting. I'll do what I can.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of describes what machine, I guess, that she's in.
They're strengthening legs.
It kind of does.
It's leg day.
Yeah.
Imogen's leg day.
Yeah, I think it was it was
Yeah.
either an
Yeah.
adductor or abductor machine, but I don't remember which
Right.
See, that's what I was going to guess, too.
one. Sure, yeah. Where are those muscles in your leg? Tell me.
I don't know.
Below the
It's a
waist.
good start. Below the waist. In your leg.
This
I
one.
thought it was the one with the thighs or whatever.
Yeah.
Nice, good one. There you go.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
That is, yeah.
That's it.
One of
I'm
those.
right. Rebecca does such a good job describing it. I don't have to go to the gym.
I would
to-
think that would be
yes.
a good one, right? If you're sort of trying to learn to strengthen your
Oh, yeah,
thigh
for sure.
grip on a dragon neck.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the first thing I would go for if I was trying to do that.
Of course.
Definitely.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, like you try to gear it towards what muscles you think you would need to stay on a dragon. I honestly don't remember if we get specifics on other things about a workout, but like you could still come up with something.
I'm on Emma watch.
Core, for sure. You got to stay upright.
Yes, that's right. Core for sure. Hips.
First,
Strength, mobility.
Don't
have an
skip
awkward
the glutes.
interaction with a guy. Second, be with someone you don't fully trust. Third, be in a room of 3 people that might be up to no good if there was a 4th one in the room. Then
All right.
sit down at the machine.
Yes.
Yeah. Foundation's important.
It is. Yeah.
Typical gym experience.
All right, that's the end of our chapter section for this week. So it is time for some reflection, boys. We are about 40% into the book. How are we feeling about the world building, the writing, the pacing, the plot? Are you excited to keep reading?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that we're already this far along after the second reading section. But loving it so far. Like I told you guys earlier, I've been in withdrawal all week because I stayed up till like 1 a.m. on Tuesday or Wednesday, and then I had to stop reading. And I don't know. I might read tonight a little bit, but I don't know. Everything about the dragons has me locked in, plus the enemies to lovers trope and Dane's insufferability. I'm really curious about a future Taryn and Coda brawl. Especially if my theory of like Melgren being a possible conspirator in these attacks or whatever. But we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
But doesn't it suck to stop reading? That was me
Yes.
for the last 4 months.
Yes.
It's the worst.
Definitely sucks.
That's why I think you should wait until we get closer to the recording date.
But then I feel like
he's
I'm not going to read until like Sunday, and then I'm going to be all flustered and feeling like I'm going to catch
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 40% when you said that, I was like, that's weird, because reading on a Kindle, didn't realize that we were almost halfway through the book. But I'm honestly feeling pretty good. The pacing's good. The world's interesting. We're probably maybe 2 or 3 chapters away from like a grander plan being revealed, I think, because we're sort of past all the getting to the point where everyone has a dragon and stuff like that. War being declared and all that, I think, would be something big to happen. Or
Aren't they in war?
I mean, you know, there's war, and then there's war.
Oh, God.
Because they said, like,
My bad.
if we're actually called into war, like, we've never had to call all the students in
Oh,
before.
yeah.
And they
Got
said
it.
that, like, 3 times. So I'm like, so that's gotta happen in some sort of way. But
Yeah, for sure.
I am interested in what's happening next. The only thing stopping me, like I said, is work and sleep, both of which happen at the worst times. So sometimes at the same time.
Oh my goodness. Well, have your guys' impressions of any of the characters changed in this section? Do you have any new favorites or anyone you're newly suspicious of? Anything you're more excited to learn about?
Riddick is probably my favorite right now. Dude's hilarious. I still really like Violet. I guess you could say I'm still a little bit suspicious of Xaden just because we've yet to get some more airtime with him. It's just still a little bit here and there. But I'm also excited to get like more from him and his story. And then Taryn and Andarna, for sure. You could even loop Sigale in there because they have that whole relationship. And Andarna, we don't know this yet or know it for sure, but it seems like Andarna is almost like their offspring.
Like Taryn and Sigale?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. She's a smaller dragon. Never have seen a small dragon like that. So that's just like a logical step for me.
They're protecting her and stuff.
Yeah.
Like their actual offspring, or just like it's sort of an adoptive thing?
I would thinking like their literal offspring, yeah.
I couldn't remember if they said that like the different colors of dragons can have different colors or mate together or whatever. If it's just like random what color dragon hatches out of whatever.
I don't think
I have
they
no
know
idea.
enough about stuff.
Yeah, well, maybe they should ask. How you guys do it?
Why didn't anyone think of that?
I mean, yeah, most of my stuff is pretty much the same. Riddick's okay. Dare I say a bit ridiculous.
Yeah.
But out of class, he's a funny, witty guy. Just keep it out of class. Us nerds are trying to absorb the info, sans pun. And I still like Vi. I'm loving the lead, sure of herself, cunning, maybe a bit dense in the romance department.
We'll get there.
Dane sucks, always has, quite possibly always will. The dragon's personalities I really enjoy. Even though we saw mostly Taryn, we still did get glimpses of Goldie as well. And she seems just swell.
Just swell. All right. Final thoughts and theories for the first book in the series.
Violet is going to overcome her short queen stature and against all odds be able to stay and fight fiercely atop Taryn. Really excited to read how their bond develops as well, and obviously what her signets will be, because I'm assuming she's getting 2 since she has 2 dragons. I'm curious as to how Andarna will play into this. Like, is she just going to be like flying around with him all the time too? Because she can't carry Violet apparently, so she's just going to be like following them into battle and stuff. So that'll be interesting. Now that like Violet and Xaden are pretty much linked due to Taryn and Sigale, like that relationship will start to develop in every way. I foresee Violet having to really tell off Dane at some point, and then he'll get all pissy and huffy and like storm off or something, while also warning her to be careful of Xaden, like over his shoulder. You know what I mean? I'm thinking it might be kind of going along with Kyle's comment about like the big thing coming up possibly in a couple chapters. I feel like it'll be a quick transition to them like learning what they need to learn, like maybe even a little bit of a jump ahead, and then just like getting posted somewhere or sent somewhere for defense or attack. Because there's obviously some urgency, especially if they're like talking about it in their classes and stuff. Like they obviously want them ready to be aware of what's happening and like go out and do what they need to do.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or they might just get sent out early. Like you said, Kyle, it might be like, okay, it's wartime. You're just going to have to learn what you're going to learn in war. So here you go. Have fun with your dragon.
Yeah, I mean, something I feel like would have to happen, because it would be crazy to me if they get through all of the years without us seeing any of the outer battle.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I think obviously, hopefully, gonna see a lot less Dane and a lot more Xaden. Hopefully, I mean, it's the less Dane that I care more about, honestly.
At this point.
I think we're going to see some of the unbonded try to take out Violet, because that was heavily hinted at at the end of the section. And then obviously we'll start to see a lot of new signet powers, which I'm totally here for. It's literally a book with dragon-based magic. I'm a D&D nerd, so
Yeah.
all the way in for that one. And I know, now that I know we're almost halfway into the book, I just do feel like there has to be some sort of big reveal. Corruption in the government, war gets worse, something that makes us think, oh no, the good guys aren't that good after all, sort of thing. More cupped faces, more prickled scalps, probably more corsets being untied for more than just relic viewing.
Heyo. Well said. Wow.
Also, in my like wildest of throws, like I said, I texted John, I think like the day after we recorded the first
that's
episode.
right.
And I was like, are we believing that Brennan is actually dead, or like possibly ever was dead? Because like something about the whole dead brother thing that's still around, and like, oh, she has this journal that he wrote and was passed down from sister to sister, and like he's still in the story, so I feel like he has to be a bigger deal than they say. Yeah, I don't know, just every once in a while he's brought up, and that to me is like a red flag to be like, you better remember her brother's name and description.
Yep.
And description.
Height, weight, social security number, maybe.
His address and...
But yeah, we like briefly talked about it to where I was like, I don't know, maybe the resurrection actually did take and like they had to keep it a secret or something. I don't know. Yeah, what could be going on there. And maybe we'll learn more through them and their dragons or something. And if there's any connections with them in the past, because I assume there would be.
Nice.
I mean, assumedly the dragons know a lot more than Violet.
Yeah,
currently,
I mean...
so
yeah, that's what I think too.
Well, and like Brennan's dragon would have survived, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, unless it's one of the ones that like had such a
Likely.
good connection that it was like,
Oh, yeah.
I can't live without you.
If he was like really
Oh,
powerful, yeah. That's true.
yeah, we didn't really get that information.
When they were all saying, I forget what the person's name was, started with an N. That
Naolin?
Nailin.
yes, when I guess they were the one that could like draw power from others and redirect it. So I don't know, like to me that's like unless someone has a healing ability, like maybe you could draw that from them and put it all into Brennan. But what if he just like drew raw power and put it all into him and something else happened? I don't know. There's just something suspicious there that there's that much detail given to it, but nothing has come from it yet.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Good thoughts and theories, guys. You're
Yeah.
thinking deep.
This
I'm
is
so
so
proud
fun.
of you. Well, this takes us to the cry counter. I just wanted to check, did anyone cry for Dane's broken heart?
No.
Okay, cool. Just making sure.
Raspberries for Dane.
I got one job on this podcast, guys. Just making sure.
Maybe his might have cried with him. You'll be okay, buddy. I hope his dragon disapproves.
Of him as a person.
Yeah, just like he comes back and tells his dragon about the kiss, and it's like, bro, that was not the move.
Should have torched you at presentation.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, listener. You've passed episode 2 of Fourth Wing. Join us next week as we continue with chapters 18 to 25. Our reading schedule is still pinned on Instagram if you'd like to follow along.
In the meantime, check out our website at betweenpagesandfriends.com for sweet merch and all of our links for staying connected. While you're there, go and sign up for our monthly newsletter and check out our Patreon for our community of other really cool nerds. Until next time, stay wordy, stay nerdy, don't stress, and stay blessed.
Bye. Bye. See you next week. Are we flying again? Are you squawking like that lady? 2 dragons.
2 dragons.
It's like the equivalent of Professor Dumbledore. Did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire?
Yes, exactly. Well, and you know, like if this ever became a movie, that actress, she has one line. She would sell
gonna
it.
make it work,
She would.
bro. Yeah.
Needs to
Yes.
be dedicated to her craft.
She like turns towards the camera and it's like, 2 dragons.